Hello, boys and girls. This is Miss Christenberry, and I want to read to you one of my favorite books called The Mitten. And do you know the difference between a mitten and a glove? Well, these are my gloves. And notice that each one of my fingers has a special little compartment to go inside of. And with a mitten, the difference is my thumb has a compartment, and then all four of these fingers will fit into the same compartment. And have you ever seen these big needles like this? These are called knitting needles. And I have a whole bundle of them here. And they're different sizes. Here's a skinny one. And people use these to knit together this yarn to make things like stockings, Christmas stockings, and toboggans. This is my Mount Vernon toboggan. It's purple and white. And scarves. I had a little girl in my first grade class one year, and her mom knitted this scarf for me. And these needles are used along with thread called yarn, and you just wiggle these needles together with the yarn, and you can create some really nice things to either wear yourself or give away. And so the name of this book is called The Mitten. It is written by Jan Brett, and she is one of my favorite authors. And this is a folk tale. And one reason why Jan Brett is one of my favorite authors is because of her illustrations. And if you'll look on the sides here, she gives you clues as to what's happening or gonna happen on the next page. So let's read this book. I want you to enjoy it. Once there was a boy named Nicky who wanted his new mittens made from wool as white as snow. At first, his grandmother Baba did not want to knit white mittens. If you drop one in the snow, she warned, you'll never find it. But Nicky wanted snow white mittens. And finally, Baba made them. Now, Baba is just another name for grandmother. And so we can look over here and we can see the white snow. And the illustration has the shape of a mitten there. Jan Brett does some fun things in her books. After she finished, she said, when you come home, first I will look to see if you are safe and sound, but then I will look to see if you still have your snow white mittens. So off Nicky went, and it wasn't long until one of his new mittens dropped in the snow and was left behind. Now look over here in this mitten. There's an animal there. He is crawling in that snow. A mole. It was a mole. That picture was of a mole. Tired from tunneling along, discovered the mitten and burrowed inside. It was cozy and warm and just the right size, so he decided to stay. Now look, there's another mitten and another animal. It's a rabbit. A snowshoe rabbit came hopping by. He stopped for a moment to admire his winter coat. It was then that he saw the mitten, and he wiggled in, feet first. The mole didn't think there was room for both of them, but when he saw the rabbit's big kickers, he moved over. And now I'm looking over here in this mitten to see the next animal. Next, the hedgehog came, sniffing along, and having spent the day looking under the wet leaves for things to eat, he decided to move into the mitten and warm himself. The mole and the rabbit were bumped and jostled, but not being ones to argue with someone covered with prickles, they made room. Look, now there's an owl. As soon as the hedgehog disappeared into the mitten, a big owl, attracted by the commotion, swooped down. When he decided to move in also, the mole, the rabbit, and the hedgehog grumbled. But when they saw the owl's glinty talons, they quickly let him in. Look at this mitten. It's getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. It's being stretched out. And now I look over here in this mitten and I see another animal. We'll find out on the next page what it is. Up through the snow appeared the badger. He eyed the mitten and began to climb in. The mole, the rabbit, the hedgehog, and the owl were not pleased. There was no room left. But when they saw his diggers, they gave him the thumb compartment of the mitten. Remember? Gloves have a compartment for each finger, but the mitten has a compartment for the thumb and then another compartment for the fingers. Look, the next animal is in that mitten. It started snowing, but the animals were snug in the mitten. A waft of warm steam rose in the air, and a fox trotting by stopped to investigate. Just the sight of the cozy mitten made him feel drowsy. The fox poked his muzzle in, and when the mole, the rabbit, the hedgehog, the owl, and the badger saw his shiny teeth, they gave the fox lots of room. Now look in this mitten. It's a bear. A great bear lumbered by. He spied the mitten all plumped up. Not being one to be left out in the cold, he began to nose his way in. The animals were packed in as tightly as could be. But what animal would argue with a bear? Would you argue with a bear? Not me. Now look, it's a tiny mouse. Let's find out what happens. Along came a meadow mouse, no bigger than an acorn. She wriggled into the one space left and made herself comfortable on the top of the great bear's nose. See that mouse? Now look, do you remember this character's name? You're right. It's Nikki. The bear, tickled by the mouse's whiskers, gave an enormous sneeze. Achoo! The force of the sneeze shot the mitten up into the sky and scattered the animals in all directions. There's Nicky. And here he comes running. On his way home, Nicky saw a white shape in the distance. It was the lost mitten silhouetted against the blue sky. And here we just see animals laying all over the snow. As he ran to catch his snow-white mitten, he saw Baba's face in the window. First, she looked to see if he was safe and sound, and then she saw that he still had his new mittens. We continue to see the animals. And there Baba is. And she's looking and comparing those mittens. And she sees that one, it's its original size. And the other is all stretched out. I wonder what Baba's thinking. I hope you enjoyed this story. Remember, it's called The Mitten, and enjoy it. Watch it over and over if you'd like to. And I'll see you at school. I'll see you in the halls. Bye-bye.